The interaction between the Dalai Lama and Chris Gregoire on April 12, 2008, at the Seeds of Compassion event in Seattle, unfolded as a vivid, almost surreal tableau of cultural harmony and shared purpose, set against the sprawling, cavernous stands of Qwest Field. Can you even fathom the sheer scale of it? Where thousands, yes, thousands of souls gathered under a sky that seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what might bloom from this extraordinary convergence of spiritual and civic leadership. On that crisp spring day, with the air sharp and alive, carrying the faint scent of Puget Sound salt and the murmur of a restless crowd, the Dalai Lama stood there, his presence a quiet thunder amidst the noise, a man whose very being seemed to whisper, "Peace is possible, if only we dare to feel it." Oh, how his saffron robes fluttered ever so slightly in the breeze, a splash of color that felt like a defiant hymn against the gray steel and concrete of that modern stadium. Didn't it strike you as miraculous that a figure so rooted in ancient wisdom could stand so comfortably in a place built for the roar of sports and spectacle, turning it instead into a sanctuary of stillness? Beside him, Chris Gregoire, then in the thick of her first term as Washington's governor, brought the steady, earthy weight of her office to this improbable stage. Don't you just marvel at the thought of a leader stepping out from the cold machinery of politics into the warm, unpredictable pulse of something so human? Her participation wasn't just a formality, it was a testament, a bold declaration that this state, her state, would open its arms to a message that soared above the petty squabbles of legislation and power, reaching instead for the eternal, the universal. Can you picture her standing there, shoulders squared yet softened by the moment, her dark hair catching the light as she faced a crowd that stretched beyond sight? Together, they joined in a Native American song, and oh, what a moment it must have been. A sound rising like a river, weaving its way through the air, pulling everyone into its current. His voice, soft yet resonant, carrying the weight of decades spent teaching truths older than the mountains themselves, mingled with hers, firm and grounded in the gritty realism of a life spent navigating the storms of governance. Didn't it feel, even from a distance, like the universe itself paused to listen? That song, can we even call it just a song? Wasn't merely a performance, it was a bridge, a lifeline flung across the vast chasms of culture and time. Imagine it with me. The Dalai Lama's Tibetan heritage, steeped in the quiet, fathomless profundity of Buddhist wisdom, reaching out to touch the ancestral heartbeat of Washington's first peoples, whose lands have sung songs of resilience and connection to the earth since long before any of us drew breath. Isn't it humbling, almost achingly so, to realize how such moments peel back the layers of our separateness, revealing that we're all threads in the same vast, trembling tapestry? The melody must have rolled through the stadium like a wave, its rhythm steady yet wild, pulling at the hearts of the crowd, families clutching hands, their eyes wide with wonder, activists with fire blazing in their chests, daring to believe change could begin here, students, young and restless, dreaming of a world less broken than the one they'd inherited. What did it feel like, I wonder, to stand among them, to hear those voices rise and fall, to see the Dalai Lama and Gregoire swaying together, hands perhaps clasped or raised in unison, their shared motion a silent, sacred vow to a planet gasping for empathy? The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others, Gandhi once said. And didn't they embody that truth in that fleeting, fragile instant? Look at them. The Dalai Lama, his face creased with lines that tell of exile, of loss, yet lit with a joy so pure it could melt stone. And Gregoire, her gaze steady as a lighthouse, her smile measured yet warm, a woman who'd carved her path through the thorns of public life without losing sight of the light. The air must have buzzed with a reverence so thick you could taste it, a sweetness cut now and then by the Dalai Lama's laughter. Oh, that laugh, that glorious, unruly sound, spilling out like water from a cracked cup, disarming every guarded heart in its path. Don't you wish you could bottle it, carry it with you for the days when the world feels too heavy? And Gregoire, didn't she stand there like an oak, rooted yet bending? Her presence a quiet promise that even in the chaos of leadership, there's room for something softer, something true. Their encounter, though just a flicker in the sprawling arc of the Dalai Lama's 6-day visit, carried a weight that presses against the soul, a weight magnified by a world still reeling from Tibet's cries just weeks before. Can you hear those echoes, faint yet piercing, threading through the moment? And a state, Washington, hungry to claim a piece of something timeless, something that might outlast the fleeting headlines and the grinding gears of progress. What does it mean, I ask myself, to stand in such a moment? To feel the pull of history and the whisper of possibility colliding like waves against a shore? Happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions, the Dalai Lama has said time and again. And here he was, acting, living it, his hands moving with the rhythm, his eyes bright with a mischief that belied his years, weaving joy and meaning with a woman who'd chosen to meet him not as a politician cloaked in protocol, but as a fellow traveler on this messy, beautiful, heartbreaking road we call life. Let's linger there, shall we? Picture the scene stretching out before them. The crowd, a sea of faces, each one a story, each one a spark waiting to catch flame. The Native American singers, their voices deep and raw, must have poured out a sound that felt like the earth itself, speaking. Don't you think it's a wonder how music can carry so much more than words ever could? And there, in the midst of it, the Dalai Lama, his head tilted slightly, perhaps lost in the melody, perhaps seeing beyond the stadium to the mountains of Tibet he'd left behind decades ago. Did he feel a pang of homesickness, I wonder? Or was he so fully present that the past dissolved into the now? Beside him, Gregoire. Did she feel the weight of her title slip away for just a moment, replaced by the simple human act of joining in song? What must it have been like for her, a woman who'd spent years wrestling with budgets and crises, to stand shoulder to shoulder with a man who'd turned suffering into a lantern for the world? The song itself, oh, how I wish we knew its name. Its lyrics must have been a prayer, a plea, a celebration all at once. Maybe it spoke of the land, of ancestors watching from the stars, of a hope that refuses to die. Maybe it didn't need words at all, just the rise and fall of voices, the pulse of drums echoing through the stands like a heartbeat shared by all. Isn't it wild to think how a single sound can bind us, how it can reach into the marrow of our bones and say, "You are not alone"? For the Dalai Lama, whose life has been a testament to the power of connection, across borders, across faiths, across the divides we build, this must have felt like home, a fleeting echo of the unity he's spent his years chasing. For Gregoire, whose days were more often filled with the clamor of dissent than the harmony of song, didn't it offer a glimpse of what could be? A world where we sing together instead of shouting past each other? Let's stretch this moment further, pull it taut like a thread across the loom of time. The light must have shifted as the song played on, the afternoon sun slanting lower, casting long shadows across the field. Did it catch the Dalai Lama's glasses, turning them into twin sparks of gold? Did it warm Gregoire's face, softening the lines etched by years of hard decisions? The crowd, too, can you see them? Leaning forward, some with tears streaking their cheeks, others with hands pressed to their hearts, all of them caught in the gravity of what they were witnessing. We are all visitors to this time, this place, Tolkien wrote. Our purpose is to observe, to learn, to grow, to love, and then we return home. Weren't they all in that instant learning what it means to love? Not in the grand, sweeping gestures, but in the quiet act of standing together, singing together, being together, and oh, the layers of it all. Think of the Dalai Lama's journey. Exiled at 24, a boy thrust into a world that demanded he be both monk and monarch, carrying the weight of a people's dreams on shoulders that somehow never buckled. Doesn't it break your heart and lift it all at once to see how he turned that exile into a gift, a light he's carried to places like this, to moments like this? And Gregoire, born to working-class roots, clawing her way up through law and politics, a woman who'd faced down sexism and skepticism to lead a state, didn't she, too, carry her own quiet courage into that song? What must have passed through her mind as she stood there, the first female governor of Washington, sharing a stage with a man who'd defied empires with nothing but his faith and his smile? The song ended, of course. It had to, as all things do. But can't you feel its echo lingering still? The crowd must have erupted, a roar of applause that shook the stands, a sound that said, "We see you, we hear you, we feel you." The Dalai Lama likely bowed, that humble tilt of his head that somehow holds more grace than a king's crown, while Gregoire waved, her politician's instinct kicking in, though her eyes, didn't they shine with something deeper, something unguarded? What did they say to each other in that moment, if anything at all? Did he offer one of his playful quips, "I think you sing better than me"? Or did she simply nod, a silent thank you for the chance to be part of this? We'll never know, and maybe that's the beauty of it, the mystery that lets us fill the silence with our own hopes, our own questions. Let's sit with that silence for a breath. Imagine the stillness that followed, the way the air must have settled, heavy with meaning. The Native American singers stepping back, their voices fading into memory, the crowd holding on to the last notes like a lifeline. The Dalai Lama and Gregoire standing there side by side, two figures from such different worlds, his a realm of monasteries and mountains, hers of courthouses and capitals, yet bound by this single shimmering thread of compassion. Isn't it a marvel how life throws such pairings at us, daring us to see the common ground beneath our feet? The wound is the place where the light enters you, Rumi wrote. And didn't they both, in their own ways, let the light in that day, through the wounds of exile, of struggle, of a world that so often forgets how to care? Their encounter wasn't just a moment. It was a mirror, reflecting back to us what we could be if we dared. For the Dalai Lama, it was another step in a life spent scattering seeds of kindness, trusting they'd take root somewhere, somehow. For Gregoire, it was a chance to step beyond the podium and into something raw, something real. Don't we all crave that deep down, a chance to shed our titles and just be? The crowd carried it home with them, that seed of compassion, planting it in their own lives, maybe in a smile to a stranger, a hand extended where it wasn't expected. And here we are, years later, still talking about it, still feeling its ripples. Why does it matter so much, I wonder? Maybe because it reminds us that even in the noise of a stadium, in the chaos of a broken world, two people can stand together and sing, and that, oh, that might just be enough to save us. So let's hold it close, this image of the Dalai Lama and Chris Gregoire, their voices rising with the wind, their hearts open to a song that knew no borders. Let's ask ourselves what we'd do in their place. Would we sing? Would we sway? Would we let ourselves feel it all? Be the change you wish to see in the world, Gandhi urged, and there they were, being it, living it, breathing it. Doesn't it make you want to get up right now and find your own song, your own bridge, your own way to say yes to the wild, messy, beautiful dance of being alive?